Yo, what is up, guys? Your boy J-Max. Welcome to the channel. New welcome back for you not. And yes, I know it's been a while since I've posted a video. I'm going to be trying to post a little more since college back in session, and also I'm working less, so double whammy. But hopefully I'll be able to post a little more since I'll be at home a little more. But today we're going to be talking about She-Hulk episode 1. So I literally just watched it. It's like 4:39 a.m. So bear with me if I'm sounding a little tired or anything like that. But I'm going to be kind of just breaking down the episode. And kind of give you guys my thoughts. So, episode one of She-Hulk very much felt like a brief breakdown, or I guess introduction to the character. And I say brief because like this was like most shows, most of the Marvel shows are anywhere from like 30 to 40 minutes, maybe a little longer depending on the need. But this was just like a 30-minute episode. Nothing major happened in this episode, but we very much just got a quick introduction to Jennifer Walters and her, becoming She-Hulk. So if you didn't know She-Hulk's origin story, yeah, we're just going to kind of break down that part. So the episode opens up with, Jennifer Walters. She's a lawyer. So, we see her kind of, working on her closing statements for a case that she's working on. And one thing that I really liked about this episode, and something that we'll probably get a lot more of throughout the show, is like the fourth wall breaking. And I'm not 100% sure if this is comic book accurate. I feel like it is. I think She-Hulk was one of the characters that did a little bit of fourth wall breaking. I could be wrong though. I'm not sure because I'm not a big follower of She-Hulk, right? She's one of the characters that kind of goes like under my radar when it comes to my comic knowledge. But of course we know Deadpool does it a lot, right? That's Deadpool's whole MO. So it's very much like a Deadpool style of fourth wall breaking that we see. So we kind of see that, and she kind of, after we kind of get that introduction about, it's this cool little speech she does about, power and responsibility, kind of like a Spider-Man-esque type of speech, but it's, again, for a closing argument for her case. She says, well, she kind of breaks the fourth wall, and she says, obviously you guys aren't going to be able to focus on any of these things from this fun lawyer show, so let's kind of break down, yes, I am a Hulk, let's talk about that. So this first episode was very much just that, talking about how she became a Hulk, and, where we're going to be starting with her in the show. So it takes us over to Jennifer and her cousin, Bruce Banner. You guys know. If you didn't know, Jennifer is Bruce's cousin. And they're in a car, and this was probably one of the most interesting scenes of this episode for me, because they're driving down the road, and I think the comedy is also going to be a cool point of the show. But she's talking to Bruce about Captain America being a virgin and this and that. Obviously, it wasn't likely, and we kind of get a confirmation of that by the end of the episode. But she talks about all this stuff with her theory about Captain America. In this part of the episode, we also get Bruce in his human form, and this is one thing that wasn't 100%. Well, it was confirmed to us in Shang-Chi, but it was a thing that we were kind of curious about with Bruce. With after the snap that he did in Endgame, his arm being broken, and we kind of get an explanation with why he's in his human form, and the device that is on his arm in this episode. And apparently, he had on a rage regulator, essentially, that kept him in his human form and allowed his arm to heal. So that's how he gets his arm back to normal, and that's kind of what we find out. One of the cool things that we find out in this this part of the episode. But with that whole conversation, it's suddenly interrupted by a Sicarian ship that basically just like drops down like in front of them, and not like on the ground. It doesn't land. But it kind of floats down, and then it just catches Jennifer and Bruce off guard. Jennifer was driving, and they like flip into the woods. So at that point, we see, this is very close to the. I mean, not close. I want to say it was a blood transfusion in the comics. Don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. I really need to brush up on my She-Hulk, man. I'm just keeping it stacked. But I think it was a blood transfusion in the comics. Here it was, in the car crash, Bruce got, cut, and he in his human form, so it had, an open wound, and Jen as well. So the blood from Bruce dripped into Jen, causing her basically a blood transfusion. But it was just more so like a, if you guys have seen My Hero Academia, one of the movies, I think it was the first one where Deku and Bakugo share blood, and then Bakugo has one for all. That's essentially how this goes. they essentially, the blood from Bruce drops into her wound, and then she becomes She-Hulk. She hulks out, goes on like a mindless trek of rage, ends up in a bar, and then at that point is calling Bruce, and we see. I guess for the second time in the episode that she hulks out, I guess, was when these guys try to, hit her on or whatever, and she like hulks out again, and then Bruce tackles her and takes her to a private island that him and Tony organized for him when he was trying to figure out his whole Professor Hulk persona. So that takes us to the island. So we kind of get this whole little training montage that you might have seen not really training montage, but we'll kind of call it that you saw and probably in the trailers or any of the teasers for She-Hulk of Jennifer and Hulk on the island training. And this doesn't last long. It's literally just for this episode. I doubt we'll see anything like this ever again for the rest of the show. But it's more so Bruce kind of, breaking down what it means to be a Hulk. But we quickly realize that Jennifer is like, she's able to basically control the transformation at will at this point. She can transform into the Hulk and revert back to her human form at will. And that's very, close to the comics. Bruce is essentially the only one that has a struggle with it. In the Marvel mythos with him being the original Hulk and all the inner crap that he has going on psychologically. But other than that, that's kind of where we end off on the episode of them kind of doing this whole little, or not end off of the episode, but end off at this portion of the episode with them kind of training, and then we kind of get the rock scene of, yes, and then they also have this really cool fight where, but it wasn't like anything crazy. It was more so Bruce staying as calm as he could. Of course, he's Professor Hulk now, so he's not really gonna go too crazy on the rage. But him and Jennifer having a cousin fight, because she's ready to leave. She's like, yo, I got it. Clearly I can do all this. I don't have to, spend all these, 15 years, whatever that, you did to control yourself and all that stuff. I got it. I can control my anger. I can do this. I don't have an alternate persona that I have to wrestle with. I'm good. And that's essentially how it goes. And of course, I don't know how well people are going to, kind of receive that, but that's pretty accurate to the comics. Like Jennifer, she never really had issues. She doesn't have an alter ego. She's just her. When she turns into the Hulk, she's basically just Hulk Jen, and that's it. She doesn't really have any issues. And I think in this episode, they did a pretty good job at explaining that. I also think, though, that's going to be part of her character arc because, Bruce obviously has a lot of trauma with his Hulk transformation and all the things he had to go through. So even he says it himself that he's kind of jealous. So I think a part of her character arc for this season is definitely going to be at some point. In this episode, we got a lot of her kind of feeling like she got it, she knows it all, she's fine, she doesn't need his help, and I think probably by the end of this character arc, she's gonna start requiring help. So of course we know Daredevil's gonna be in this show, so we'll probably get her asking for help from Daredevil. Also, of course, Hulk, Bruce at some point. Hopefully, I think that'll be part of her character arc when it comes down to it. But that's basically the end of it. We get a cool little fight. We get some cool little lore tidbits, of the island that Bruce and Tony had going on. They built a bar. It was a lot of cool things like that. Some callbacks to Tony and also Captain America with the whole Virgin thing that I think was pretty hilarious. But yeah. That was pretty cool. So then we get to the final part, of the episode. She ends up leaving. They're cool. It wasn't like a big fight. It was just them having a disagreement essentially, and then wrecking the island, wrecking the bar essentially. They have a disagreement, and then Bruce is just like, okay, clearly you got it. But if you need anything, call me. And yeah, one thing I did want to note about the Sicarian ship. I'm definitely curious about what's going on there. They did name drop the ship. It was a Sicarian ship. That's how we know it. So I'm really excited about that specifically because I really do think that's going to be leading into World War Hulk. And I really hope that I'm right about it. I hope it's not some weird crap that they're trying to throw on the side and it'll be like a thing off camera. I doubt it would be because that's too important, right? A Sicarian ship is too important. So I hope that's something that they're basically saying, yeah, Hulk is going to get a movie, or it's going to be like maybe it's a movie that's exclusively on Disney Plus and they mark it as that. Who knows? But as long as Hulk could get something, we're gonna be good. But I hope it's a Sakaar thing, and I think also we got a lot of these feelings from Bruce when it came to the conversations that him and Jen were having about him feeling he said lines like once people know you as a monster, that's all you'll ever be to them, and this and that. And I think a lot of that is them building up towards the World War Hulk and Planet Hulk, because that's essentially what a lot of that conflict was about, when it comes to that whole thing. And we won't get into a whole, video about that, but that's one thing I want to mention before we carried on to the end of the episode. But we get back to Jennifer. She goes back to her regular life as a lawyer, working on a case or whatever. And then suddenly, as she's about to deliver her closing statement that we saw in the beginning of the episode, is kind of like a snapback to the present that we saw at the beginning of the episode. We see Titania crash through the courtroom, and then her friend is like, hey, you gotta Hulk out now, you gotta handle that. She hulks out and we get this, like, not really a fight, but it was like basically it took like one punch from Jennifer to beat Titania, and then they started arresting her. and she ends the episode off like, yeah, okay, now I'm ready to deliver my closing statements. And that was essentially the end of the episode. And then we get a post-credit scene. It was nothing much, just a call back to, or like a, back into the past where we spent most of the episode of her and Bruce on the island when, they were drinking. He was kind of talking about, yeah, as a Hulk, you have a pretty fast metabolism. You can, burn alcohol, so all buzz, but you won't get drunk. And they're talking about the virgin thing, and it was like this cool clip of him confirming, yeah, Steve, he lost his virginity, to this woman on, I think it was the USO, a ship, I don't know, it was toward the USO, I think that's what he said, I don't know what it was specifically, but then she's like, oh yes, and I guess she was acting like she was drunk, and that was in the episode, so nothing crazy, but as far as my review of this episode, I thought it was pretty good. I'll admit, I think the humor was it set the tone for what we're going to expect. I don't think the stakes are going to be too crazy. I think the Sakaar thing specifically, Bruce mentions it. He's like, I'll look into. I'm going to have to look into that. It seems like they were trying to send a message or something. I'll look into it. So obviously he it seems like he kind of already knows, what was going on. He knew it was a Sakaarian ship. So I wonder exactly where they're going to go with that. But other than that, we saw Titania. I don't know if Titania is going to be a reoccurring, villain. It didn't seem like she's going to appear much else at all because she got beat pretty easily in the first episode in this like one point. So it didn't seem like she's going to show up anymore. But all in all, I think it was a good start. I think it was a nice, it had some nice callbacks. It kind of explained what Bruce was doing, throughout these last 5 years, which I think was cool. Even some interactions with Tony I thought was cool as well that he kind of mentions. I thought it was really cool. It paid homage to the, universe as we knew it before with the conversations that Jen and Bruce were having. It kind of was a good start to, kind of getting into the future as well with, the Sakaarian ship and of course She-Hulk. So I thought it was a good episode, but that was my kind of synopsis and brief review of it. It's not much else I can really say because it's only one episode, and it was very much a introduction to her, just her origin story, pretty similar to the comics and things like that. I think it's, I know I was just talking about how I need to brush up on my comic book knowledge, but I think it's the She-Hulk show is going to be based off of, I think his name is Dan Slott. I think that's his name. His comic book run, so it's going to be, based off of that, so we can kind of get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen and what's to come. So that being said, though, that's the episode. That's my synopsis and review. I should have said spoiler warning in the beginning. I'll probably add a clip to it. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Cause we making noise, we shooting the movie, the show, the promo, we shooting the boys in the black and white photo, we shooting the ops in the all black GT. Can't you see that we live it, yeah?